I think if you want to be a successful investor in life, you have to have flexibility. You can't take a hard stance on anything because when the environment changes, so do you. You have to change. My work and the change that has occurred to me is by meeting the development teams on all of these different blockchains, level one, level twos, and everything else, and cryptocurrencies, and seeing the potential productivity that these developments have. And I can't know, and no one can with certainty, which will be successful. Will Solana eventually, overtake Ethereum? Will Ethereum eventually get to work of stake? All of these issues are unknowns. I look at the S&P 500, and there's 11 sectors in it. And I believe that over the next decade, blockchain and cryptocurrencies and the financial services productivity that they provide will become the 12th sector of the S&P. So the way I look at it when I'm running a mandate, let's say I have $100 billion, I'm an institution or I'm a sovereign fund, normally those mandates look like this: no more than 20% in any one sector, no more than 5% in any one stock or bond. And I've done exactly that with my foray into crypto. So now I'm at 20%. And within that portfolio, which is a very big commitment to this space, I vary my position holdings from 1 to 5%. So how much Ethereum should I own? How much Bitcoin? How much Solana? How much HBAR? How much Avalanche, Serum, Helium? I own all those, and I vary their size based on any portfolio mandate that, based on my optimism for these development teams and what they're doing. And I'm very, very fortunate. I guess sometimes it's good to be Mr. Wonderful. I get to talk to all of them all the time, and I'm very interested. I've been investing in software developers my whole career, and I really believe this: the smartest hands over keyboards now are working on the chain. They're working in crypto. Why? Because they don't want to work for the old economy. They want to be part of the new economy. And the potential of making major change is at their fingertips, literally.
I had a little observation. The executive order mentions risk 47 times. It mentions opportunity or opportunities only 4 times. Why do you think that this is?
So far, the volatility in all cryptocurrencies has been dramatic. And that's a risk, obviously, if you don't have a long-term view. But the reason you have such volatility in Bitcoin, let's take that as a staple, is there's no institutional support. If let's say you're running 100 billion, we spoke of that earlier, generally you would put a 1 to 3% position in something like Bitcoin or gold or other assets like that. And if this price corrected, you would buy it back up to 3%. That does not happen with Bitcoin because there's virtually no large institutions owning it. So yes, there's risk in this nascent period, this early period. But when institutions decide to make this an asset class, I would rather be investor before that happens than after, because the amount of capital will come into it, and they'll make their own decisions about which cryptocurrencies they want. They may take a portfolio approach. But I would argue, yes, there's risk. I mean, you can put, $10,000 into Bitcoin and have it be worth $6,000 in 2 days. That's happened every year. And so I think Biden was wise because obviously by giving the credibility through an executive order to cryptocurrencies, he wants to make sure that he's not, that he's emphasizing the risk that we all know, those of us participated for years, that is inherent in this. Timing. Things are going to get accelerated. The Loomis bill is going to get accelerated. People are going to be talking about, as you said, crypto in a way that we've never discussed it before. We're going to see more compliance. We're going to see a lot more interest in it. We're going to see a lot more dollars flowing into this sector. And I think people are getting into their heads that this is not a coin. These are software productivity tools. And I think when you think of it as a nascent industry, you definitely want to get a portfolio of these positions. So I'm not the only person that thinks this way. Obviously, we're going to get a lot more of this. It's interesting at Bitcoin 2022 that the first day is sold out for institutions only, which is amazing. That's the first time that's ever happened. I'll definitely be there. And I think that's going to be a really interesting day to see all of these institutions who still don't own any Bitcoin come to learn more about it. And really, it's because of that executive order. You got to think about it this way. Biden pushed the stone down the mountain, and now it's accelerating and it's getting bigger. It's like a snowball, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But he started it all, and I'm proud that he did it. I think it's the right thing to do, even though the world's a crazy place right now. We all know that. This is an important sector that deserves support. I don't consider Bitcoin a coin. I consider it software. It's software. Ethereum is software. HBAR is software. Polygon software. Solana software. These are software development teams. In most cases, I've met them all, and I've invested in them. And they're trying to solve primarily financial services transactions and other issues, and do it more productively at a lower cost, more transparently with audit features. And so, to me, that's the productivity software development. And I don't know why, if I own, as I do, Microsoft and Alphabet and Google and everything else in software, why wouldn't I own this? And so, I understand because it's a nascent industry, that people are skeptical. But that's the time to be an investor. You want to get in before the institutions do, and right now they're not in it yet because the order has just started. But we've had some real milestones occur in the last 2 weeks. Number one is the Loomis bill that's going through a bipartisan committee in Congress, which is great. I had a chance to visit with the senators last week in Washington, a bipartisan committee, so that's pretty rare in Washington. And then, of course, like everybody else, I read the Biden executive order. And most of it was very good news, because it basically says we've got to be competitive, we've got to regulate this, and which I think is good because it's going to get institutional capital. I think the key, and so many investors that I work with have never gone into this at all. I've known them my whole career. Started asking me, how should I get into this with my own portfolio? And I always say to them, look, start by opening a centralized wallet and a decentralized wallet. Take a small amount of money. I don't care if it's $200, because you're going to lose it in the beginning. You're going to get hacked because you don't know what you're doing. But that's okay. It's a learning experience. And once you start to understand how this works, I don't care what you use, but get both. Get a centralized and decentralized, so you start to understand how this works, and transfer some assets between your accounts. Take some USD, upload it, and buy some ETH. Get into it and start learning. It's so interesting, and within, I don't know, 2 months, you can be very knowledgeable. And then if you really go down the rabbit hole like I have, then drill down into the heliums and the Polygon versus Solana versus, HBAR and all the rest of that. But it's definitely a learning experience. And I think all of these wallets are going to get easier. We know with certainty the tax report is going to get easier because it's a mandate now. Next April, you're going to have to show your gains and losses and any staking you've done on your assets. I think that's also good. It's all good. I haven't seen a lot of negatives yet. And I saw the EU. I watched that vote with you just a couple of hours ago. They did the right thing. They said, this is crazy. We shouldn't stifle innovation. Even the EU figured that out. They don't want to fall behind. And so at the end of the day, we're going to have, proof of work driving technology to a much higher place in terms of using energy more efficiently. And that's a very, very good thing for everybody on the planet. A stable coin is no different than a money market fund, okay? You've licensed those through FDIC banks. You've allowed people to buy a money market on Schwab, a money market account on Fidelity, or wherever they've been regulated. And they're backed by the US dollar and other assets in that fund, and each one is slightly different. Why not license 5 or 10 stablecoins backed by the US dollar to major players in the stablecoin space, a Circle, for example, and others, and then let them compete? And so I, as an investor, and I do use Circle for USDC, it's one of the stablecoins I use, I could use it as a payment system. If other regulators agreed that this was a regulated security, and I could send it to Switzerland to buy a Swiss stock, or send it to France to buy a piece of land, or whatever I wanted, I didn't have to revert back to local fiat. It would still make the US dollar the defined currency of preference all around the world. It is the reserve currency for every commodity, and oil included. It would become the reserve currency for digital payment. That would be very good for the US. That's the whole idea. If people are going to come up with their own use cases, the chain is going to provide for the economics, the benefit, the transparency, the ledger, the audit, the insurance, and all the rest of that in the smart contract. And then there's the use case, staying again on something we can all understand. Let's say I own an FP Journe, and I own number 6 of the 10 centigraphs made for the New York boutique. That watch is increased in value. I mean, it's insane what it's worth today. So many people know that I own that piece in the universe of watches, and they would like to get the dial has red in it. I'm known for having red bands and red dials and all that stuff. And they've asked me, can you send me an NFT of that? Can I buy one off you? How many are you minting? And I said, well, I haven't minted an NFT of that watch. Um, so I went to FP himself and I said, FP, listen, would you let me mint a, a picture basically, or an NFT of that piece, number 6? And we started this dialogue about what is the legacy for Journe himself? If that watch NFT trades, shouldn't he get a royalty?
Mm-hmm.
And when he said royalty, I said, you're talking to the right guy on royalty. I would be happy to give you a royalty. And I think that's what's going to happen in the watch world, in the jewelry world, in the pen world, in the rare car world, in the rare baseball card world. The royalties go back to the owner of the art, and they trade in perpetuity. And so, but I think that's coming. Another use case. There's so many interesting things to do with NFTs, and I think we haven't even got to 1% yet.